Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum audience. We welcome you from podcast studio IMCB F73 Islamabad. I am lecturer Zahid from English department.
I am Lutuf Ali, lecturer in English.
Today we have selected a wonderful poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening.
This poem is written by Robert Frost, who is one of the national poets of America. He belonged to the 20th century, however, his messages and his themes resonate even in the 21st century. And most of his poetry blend realism and romanticism, that is to say, nature and everyday social life.
Okay, first we read for you the poem and then we will discuss its themes and talk about its stylistic analysis for the students who are studying in metric class for their exams and federal board. Whose wood these are? I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bell a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So, what are the major themes of this wonderful poem written by Frost?
Uh, I
Stopping by
I
Woods.
believe that the most beautiful part of many of Robert Frost's poetry is that he always starts with a delight, with the beauty, and then ends with a wisdom, some wise idea. So similarly, in this poem, we see that a person is traveling through the woods, uh, which are the symbolic representation of a very small forest, and he stops there. He watches snow is falling, it's evening time,
Mhm,
and all these depiction that he had portrayed, we come to know that he already knows the place. He had been there already, and he knows who's the owner of this village. And this is actually the symbolic representation of a pause in our daily busy life. We are always busy in our daily everyday life, and when we are busy in our everyday life, we are detached from nature and its player and its beauty. Therefore, the poet is going there in order to enjoy, in order to pass the pressure of his everyday life and be delightful about the nature. So when he is going there, we come to know that poet is giving us the importance to both, because his most of his poem contain the element of everyday life and the natural life. So here again we see that when he is talking about the horse, horse I believe is actually the conscience of the poet himself, his own dilemma, whether to go for nature or whether to go for the
mhm,
everyday life. So he is trying to blend these two things together. He is neither supporting the nature overall, nor he is focusing on the everyday life. But he believes that both things are important. We are under pressure of our everyday life. Therefore, nature is something that rehabilitate us, that rejuvenate our energy and our delight that is attached with the nature. So, horse, as we already know, horse doesn't speak, but that is the conscience of the poet himself.
mhm.
He is in the dilemma, and every day we are also in the dilemma.
Yes.
Man, nature is ambivalent.
Okay.
Okay, so here I believe that. everyday life, social life, and beauty. There's a conflict between beauty and obligation in the poem.
Yes. If we talk about stanza-wise detail, here in the first two lines, Frost is saying this, whose woods these are, I think I know. And his house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here. What is the significance that he knows that person, the woods belong to that person, and he is watching them? And what he actually wants to convey that uh, the person who possess the beautiful thing don't know the, you can say, the price or the wealth of that thing, and he is enjoying the standing and watching the beautiful forest.
Yes. As I said earlier, that this poet or the speaker or the narrator of the poem had already been there. He knows the place already. He knows the village. He knows who owns this property. But he is actually, when the person who the owner of the forest or the owner of the village is absent there, an outsider who had already been there, he comes there in order to enjoy. That message is also for the villager because he is busy in his life, but he is not enjoying the snowy evening. There is snow, there is beauty, there is lovely woods, but the owner doesn't know its importance. He is inside the house,
Inside the
but an
house and not in
outsider
there.
here comes and he is delightful about the delightful with the beauty of the nature that he finds in the snowy evening.
We can say that the possession of something lose its significance and importance.
Exactly.
Okay, in the second stanza, the my little horse must think it queer, and you very beautiful explain the horse is the inner conscience of the poet. To stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Here, the word darkest, what it represents. Whether we can say that here the frost uh, is going a bit, little bit pessimistic, pessimism.
I don't believe that he is pessimist here because if you look at almost all of his poem, you would not find any single pessimistic line. But darkest here represent, as we know by the snow. Snow means it is winter, and
Okay.
in winter we have December, and in December we have the darkest night. So this
Okay,
is
in Europe, the winter is a symbolism of death.
it is.
And if it is the darkest evening of the year,
Hmm.
and it must be there fall in the winter, no moon is there, and because
Exactly.
of the snow falling,
Hmm.
there is absence of light, and
Hmm.
absence of light is darkness. So it means that when we are passing or we are getting through our life, we have got dark period as well,
Hmm.
and the inner conscience and a dialogue between his inner conscience and
Hmm.
the poet
Hmm.
here construct what, whether he you can say himself correct himself or motivate himself.
Actually, by the darkest, we can infer another meaning that, as I said earlier, that it is the winter, and in winter we have some darkest night of the years. So here, by darkest, he means that he is horse is actually thinking that why he has stopped here. He is in the dilemma. He is in the
Dilemma.
conflict. So that conflict for the poet becomes the darkest. He believes that there is no light and there is a conflict here, and he has to resolve it because that is his inner voice. He is speaking to himself through the mouthpiece of the horse he is riding on.
Okay, when we look at the third stanza, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. Here is another dialogue
Hmm.
uh, between his inner conscience and the only other sounds the sweep of ease, wind, and downy flake. What sort of, you can say, imagery is used by the poet here in this stanza?
Now here he is actually showing the importance of silence in our life because there are only two sounds that he hear. One is the sweeping sound of the flake that is downing on the
Mhm.
forest, and other sound is the sound of his conscience. That is the sound that he has represented through the harness
Harness
bells
bells
of
a
the.
shake.
Because now you see that the harness bell of the horse is actually the question
Mhm,
for the poet himself. That question is actually he is asking him that why have you been here for a long time. He
mhm,
is reminding him that you have to go back.
yeah.
You cannot stay here any longer. So that is the reminder. Normally, we have such kind of reminder in our life, and human nature is ambivalent all the time. We are always in the condition of to be or not to be.
So
We
we can say that here he is talking about the human limitations. We are
exactly,
bound to have some duties, or you can say responsibilities to
exactly.
do. So
That
that's why we
affirms
have
in
to move on.
that exactly affirms in the next stanza, in the last stanza.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. The last stanza,
Yes. So
the
these are
concluding message given by him, a very
yes,
beautiful
these
stanza.
are very beautiful lines, and you see, as I said earlier, that almost all of his poem begin with delight and end with the wise idea. Now, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. There is beauty. I want to enjoy the beauty. Okay, he wants to enjoy the beauty, but his the harness bell that he has mentioned in the third stanza, that is the reminder for his social life. He cannot last longer in the beauty of the forest. He has to go back because he has obligations, he has social life there, which he has to go there, and in order to continue his social life. Similarly, in the last two lines, that is the repetition.
And miles to go before I
So,
sleep, or
so
emphasize.
yes, his inner conscious is telling him that you have miles to go before you sleep. Before dying, you have to come accomplish your task that are
So
assigned to you.
here you can say that the sleep represent the death.
Death,
Death.
death.
So to reach our destination, we have
Yes,
to travel a lot.
we have to travel a lot, and we
And
cannot only intermingle ourselves with the nature only. We have social life,
we have
therefore,
social lives, we have commitments to
yes.
fulfill, we have duty, responsibilities to go. So that's the end of the beautiful poem. We
Thank
thank you
you
very
very
much,
much.
audience, for listening us. Thanks a lot. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.